The wind roared in my ears as we plummeted through the sky, the clouds ripping past us like paper. I couldn't hear anything but my own heartbeat, deafening and uneven. My hands clung tightly to the straps of my harness, knuckles pale. Then she turned her head slightly, just enough for her voice to reach me, calm and deliberate. "Your turn to fall," she whispered. It wasn't just about the skydive. It wasn't about the adrenaline or the thrill. It was something deeper, heavier. Her words echoed in my chest louder than the rush of air around us. She wasn't challenging me to jump, I already had. She was asking me to let go. Of fear, of doubt, of control. I didn't know if I was ready. The landing was rough, not because of the ground, but because my legs didn't feel like mine anymore. Wobbling on my feet, I tore the helmet off and gulped air like I'd been underwater too long. The ground spun a little, but her voice steadied me. "You did great," Jade said with a smile that barely touched her lips but reached her eyes. I blinked at her. She was already out of her gear, her short dark hair tousled by the wind. The way she moved, casual, sure, like gravity never quite had a grip on her, was something I couldn't explain. Maybe that's why she made me nervous. Or maybe it was the way she looked at me like she knew more than she should. "You always do this?" I asked, still shaking. "Most weekends," she said, crouching to coil her parachute line. "Jumping clears my head." I didn't answer. I was still trying to find my feet. She noticed. "You want to sit down for a bit?" I nodded, too exhausted to pretend I was okay. We walked over to the open field near the landing zone. She offered me a water bottle, which I took without a word. Silence lingered between us. Comfortable for her, not so much for me. "I didn't think I'd actually do it," I said finally. "Jump. You didn't have to." Her tone was even, no judgment. "But you said." "I said your turn to fall," she cut in gently. I didn't say when. I looked at her then, really looked. She wasn't just a thrill seeker. There was something about her, like she carried her own kind of weight beneath that cool surface. It made me wonder what she was falling from. And whether she'd already hit the ground before I ever met her. The lodge buzzed with scattered conversations and the soft clatter of mugs meeting tables. Everything smelled like roasted coffee beans and worn leather, the scent of adrenaline slowly giving way to something warmer. I sat across from her, still not sure why I agreed to coffee. Maybe it was the way she looked at me, like I was a puzzle she'd already started solving. Maybe I just needed something steady, even if it was from a stranger. Jade stirred her drink slowly, not looking at me, like the silence between us was some kind of experiment. She wore a loose flannel shirt now, sleeves rolled up to her elbows. I found myself watching the way her fingers curled around the cup, how calm she looked. "You're quieter than I expected," she said eventually, glancing up. "I don't do this often," I replied. She smiled, just a corner of her mouth lifting. "Jump from planes or talk to people?" "Both," I said, and we both laughed a little too quickly, like we were both surprised by the answer. She leaned back in her chair. "I used to be like that. Closed off. Always in control. Took me a long time to realize that doesn't always keep you safe." I didn't say anything. I wasn't sure I wanted to talk about safety, or how it's never felt real in my world. I wrapped my hands around my mug, trying to focus on the warmth. "You jumped today," she said softly, not as a compliment but as a reminder. "That takes guts." "Yeah," I said, eyes fixed on the steam curling from my drink. "But it didn't fix anything." "It's not supposed to fix anything," she said. "It just shows you what you're carrying." I looked at her then, really looked. Her eyes weren't just calm, they were full of something else. Sadness, maybe, or understanding. Something I hadn't expected from someone who seemed so fearless. "I didn't even tell anyone I was doing this," I admitted. "No one at all." I shook my head. "Didn't want them to ask why. Or tell me not to." Jade nodded, like she got it. "Sometimes the hardest part isn't jumping. It's the silence after. That hit harder than I expected." She wasn't talking about skydiving anymore. And neither was I. She changed the subject, maybe sensing I needed air. "You hungry? The chili here's actually decent." "Sure," I said, grateful for the shift. As she stood to order, I watched her walk to the counter. Confident but not loud, there was something about her that made me want to listen longer, stay just a bit more. Not because she was trying to impress me, but because, for the first time in a while, I didn't feel like I had to hide. Maybe that was its own kind of falling. The chili was surprisingly good, or maybe it just felt that way because I hadn't eaten all day. I sat with the bowl in front of me, spooning bites slowly, letting the warmth settle into the space where nerves had been. Jade didn't rush me, she didn't talk unless she had something real to say, and that made the silence feel lighter somehow. Outside the window, the sky had begun to shift, streaks of orange and gold bleeding into the edges of the clouds. The day was ending, and I wasn't sure what came next. I hadn't planned to spend this much time with her. I hadn't planned any of this. "Do you live around here?" she asked, breaking the quiet. "No," I said, "couple hours away. I just needed to get out. Away from the usual." She nodded like that made perfect sense. "You came looking for something." I hesitated. "Maybe. Or trying to leave something behind." She didn't press, just sipped her drink and let me sit in my answer. "What about you?" I asked, deflecting. "This place your home?" "Kind of," she said. "I bounce around, work remotely, live light, sounds free. Sometimes. Other times, it's just lonely." Her honesty caught me off guard. She didn't dress it up or make it sound poetic. Just laid it there, between us, like it didn't need to be hidden. I looked down at my spoon, then back up at her. "Why do you do it?" "The jumping." She tilted her head, considering. "It reminds me I'm still here. Still capable of trusting something, gravity, instinct, myself. It strips away everything else." "And when you're falling?" I asked. "What do you think about?" "You," she said, barely above a whisper. I froze. My fingers tightened around the spoon. I didn't look up right away. I wasn't sure if I'd heard her right. When I finally met her eyes, she didn't flinch. "Today," she clarified, "I was thinking about you. How scared you looked. How brave you were anyway." My chest tightened, unsure whether it was fear or something else building there. I wasn't used to someone seeing me like that. Seeing past the practiced smile and well-guarded walls. "I don't know what I'm doing," I admitted. "With you, with any of this. You don't have to know," she said gently. "You just have to be here." The moment stretched. The air between us was still, but not empty. Something unspoken settled in, like a quiet agreement we weren't ready to say out loud. She stood first. "Come on. I want to show you something before it gets dark." I followed her outside without asking where we were going. I didn't need to know. All I knew was I didn't want the night to end yet. Not if she was still in it. The wind had softened by the time we stepped outside, brushing gently against my skin like a fading memory. The field beside the lodge stretched wide and quiet, grass swaying in slow waves under the setting sun. Jade walked ahead, hands tucked into her jacket pockets, gaze fixed on something in the distance. I followed without question, drawn forward more by her presence than curiosity. She stopped near a wooden fence that marked the edge of the open drop zone, where the grass gave way to a wide, empty sky. From here, the view was endless, clouds fading into twilight, streaks of orange melting into deepening blue. It felt like we were standing on the edge of something much bigger than either of us. "This is my favorite spot," she said. "After a jump, before the noise comes back." I nodded, understanding even if I didn't have the words. We stood there in silence, side by side, breathing in the kind of quiet that didn't need to be filled. Then she turned to me. "How about one more?" I looked at her, confused. "Another jump." "Not tonight," she smiled. "Tomorrow. Tandem this time. With me." My stomach dropped a little. I'd barely managed to keep it together today, and now she wanted me to trust her enough to strap myself to her and fall again. "I don't know if I can," I said, voice low. She didn't push. "You don't have to decide now." I didn't respond right away. My thoughts were a tangle. The first jump had been about facing fear. This one felt different, more personal. It wasn't about the fall, it was about who I'd be falling with. "I had someone once," I said finally. She told me she'd never let me go. But she did. Jade didn't move. She didn't offer sympathy or platitudes. She just waited. After that, I promised myself I'd never let anyone hold that much of me again, I continued. It's easier that way. Safer. Safer doesn't always mean better, she said softly. I know, but knowing doesn't make it easier. She stepped a little closer, not touching me, just there. Then let's make it easier. Together. I looked out at the sky again, the fading light stretching across the horizon like a slow breath. Maybe it was the quiet. Or maybe it was her. But something in me started to shift. Just slightly. I'll think about it, I said. That's all I'm asking. We walked back in silence, but something had changed. The space between us was no longer empty. It was full of something unspoken. A promise that hadn't been made yet, but was slowly finding its shape. The next morning was colder than I expected. The air had a bite to it, and mist clung to the edges of the field like a warning. I stood near the hangar, heart thumping hard in my chest as the jumpsuit clung to me like second skin. My fingers trembled slightly as I pulled on my gloves, pretending it was just from the chill. Jade approached from the other side, helmet under one arm, eyes calm. She didn't smile right away. She just looked at me, like she was checking for something behind my expression. I couldn't tell what she saw. You sure about this? She asked. No, I said, and then quickly added, but I'm here. That was enough for her. She nodded and handed me my helmet. The prep was quiet. No small talk, no distraction. Just the steady rhythm of buckles, straps, and deep breaths. When Jade stepped behind me and started attaching our harnesses together, I could feel the closeness, the way her hands moved with practiced certainty. She didn't hesitate. I did, though. My fingers froze more than once. Not out of fear, but from the way every inch of distance between us was slowly being erased. You're going to feel every movement I make, she said calmly. Just stay relaxed. Let me guide you through it. I nodded, though I wasn't sure I could. I wasn't used to surrendering anything, especially not control. The plane buzzed to life, and soon we were climbing again, high above the world I knew. This time was different. I wasn't alone. Her breath was warm near my ear. Her voice was steady as she counted down. Every word grounded me. When the door opened and the wind came roaring in, I almost backed out. Almost. Then I felt her hand squeeze mine. Just once. Just enough. And we jumped. The air hit us like a wall, but I didn't scream. I didn't panic. I closed my eyes, leaned back against her, and let the world disappear. For those few seconds, there was no weight, no fear, no memory. Just the rush, the silence inside the noise, and the rhythm of her breathing keeping time with mine. When we landed, I stayed still longer than I needed to, knees pressed into the earth. I didn't want to get up too fast. I didn't want to break whatever had just happened. You okay? She asked, crouching beside me. I looked at her, eyes wide. I think I am. That's good. But I don't know what this means, I admitted. Any of it. She smiled softly. It doesn't have to mean anything yet. Just that you let go. Just that you trusted me. I nodded slowly. My chest felt full in a way I hadn't let it feel in years. It scared me, but it also made me feel more alive than I had in a long time. Thank you, I whispered. You don't have to thank me, she said. You did the falling. The sun dipped low again, stretching long shadows across the field as the last jumpers packed up and the lodge grew quieter. We didn't go back inside. Instead, Jade led me to a small fire pit tucked near the edge of the trees, already glowing with slow, flickering embers. Someone had started it earlier, and it still held enough warmth to chase the evening chill from our bones. We sat close, not touching, but the space between us felt warmer than the fire. I wrapped my arms around my knees and stared into the flames. My thoughts were loud, tumbling over each other, too many questions and not enough answers. Jade stayed silent beside me, sipping something from a tin cup, eyes fixed on the fire like it held secrets. I used to think being alone made me strong, I said after a while. Like if no one got close, no one could hurt me. She didn't respond right away. Just let the words settle in the space between us. I know that feeling, she said finally. Sometimes walls feel safer than doors. But they also get heavy. You carry them everywhere. I turned my head slightly, watching her in the orange light. You ever let someone in? Like, really in? She was quiet again, then nodded. Once. A long time ago. I thought it was forever. What happened? She took a slow breath. She left. Not all at once. Little by little. Until I was the only one trying. The way she said it, it wasn't bitter. Just tired. Familiar. Sounds familiar, I murmured. Does it still hurt? She asked gently. Only when I let it, I answered. But lately, I don't know. You show up, and suddenly everything I built to protect myself starts feeling like a cage. Jade looked at me, her eyes steady. Maybe that's because you're ready to leave it. I wasn't sure what to say. I hadn't expected this to happen. I came here to forget, not to feel again. But now, the quiet between us wasn't empty. It was full of things unspoken, things I didn't think I had room for anymore. I don't know if I'm ready, I whispered. You don't have to be, she said, voice softer than before. You just have to be willing. The fire crackled softly. I didn't move, neither did she, but the weight on my chest had shifted. It wasn't gone, but it was lighter. Easier to carry with her beside me. We stayed there until the stars took over the sky, neither of us in a hurry to break whatever fragile peace we had found in that moment. The walk back to the lodge was slow. We didn't speak much, but every step felt like it carried something deeper than words. The path was lit only by a few scattered lights from the windows and the soft glow of the moon overhead. Our shadows followed us, long and close together on the ground. I could feel the quiet thrum of my heartbeat in my throat, and somehow, that silence between us didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt full, alive. Jade walked with her hands in her pockets, glancing at me now and then. Not watching, just noticing. She didn't press or fill the quiet with words. She knew I needed space to think, to feel without being pushed. When we reached the steps of the lodge, I paused. Something in me didn't want to go inside yet. Maybe I didn't want the night to end. Maybe I just didn't want to lose the feeling I'd found back there by the fire. I turned to her. She met my gaze, her face unreadable in the low light, but her eyes were steady. Waiting. Back there, I said softly. When I told you I didn't know if I was ready, I think maybe I am. She didn't smile, not the way people do when they hear something they've been hoping for. Instead, she just stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat of her body in the cool air. I don't want you to fall for me just because I caught you once, she said. This has to be yours too. It is, I replied. I just didn't know how to say it before. She reached out, not pulling me in, just offering her hand. I took it. My fingers slipped between hers like they belonged there. I remember what you said up there, I added, my voice barely more than a breath. Your turn to fall. She leaned in slightly, her forehead almost touching mine. Is it? It is, I said. You're not the only one carrying weight. We stood there, holding each other in silence, not rushing the moment, not naming it. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. I didn't even know what I wanted it to bring. But right there, with her hand in mine, I didn't need answers. I just needed the feeling that I wasn't alone anymore. And in that quiet, steady stillness, I knew we were both falling, finally, together. The sky was clear that morning, not a single cloud to soften the blue. I stood alone near the plane, suited up, helmet in hand, wind tugging at the edges of my jumpsuit. My pulse was steady, not because I wasn't nervous, but because something inside me had changed. The fear was still there, but it had loosened its grip. I wasn't hiding behind it anymore. Jade stood a little ways off, watching me. She didn't come closer. She didn't need to. Her presence was like an anchor, even from a distance. This time, it was me doing the jumping. No tether, no second person. Just me, gravity, and everything I'd been afraid to face. The instructors gave their final checks, hands patting my gear, nods exchanged. And then it was time. I climbed into the plane with the others, my heart humming in my chest. As we rose, the ground growing smaller beneath us, I didn't think about falling. I thought about how far I'd come. About Jade's voice that still echoed softly in my mind. About how I had let her in, and how that choice had made room for something new. When the door opened, the wind hit like a shout, loud and cold and endless. I stepped forward, each footfall deliberate. My breaths were deep. The instructor's signal came, but I didn't need it. I jumped. The fall was instant and all-consuming. The air roared past me, and for a moment, there was nothing but speed and sky. No memories, no past, no walls. Just the feeling of release. Of trusting myself, for once. And in the silence that followed, when the chute opened and the world slowed down, I could almost hear her voice again. Soft, steady, you let go. You're ready now. The landing came smooth, easier than the first time. I dropped to one knee, not from fear, but from the rush. From the freedom. I laughed, loud, unexpected, full, and the sound startled even me. When I looked up, Jade was already walking toward me. Her eyes held no surprise. Just pride. Understanding. You did it, she said. So did you, I replied. We didn't need to say more. We just stood there, letting the moment settle between us. This time, I reached for her hand first. She took it, and we walked back together, not as strangers pulled together by fear, but as something new, something real. Whatever was next, we were stepping into it side by side. No more falling, just flying. Sometimes, falling isn't about fear. It's about letting go of the weight you've carried for too long, the doubts, the hurt, the silence. It's about trusting someone enough to take the leap, even when everything inside you screams to hold back. For me, falling with Jade wasn't just about skydiving. It was about rediscovering parts of myself I thought I'd buried for good. The kind that still believed in connection. In softness. In starting again. She never asked me to be fearless. She just asked me to be honest. And through every quiet moment, every glance, every step we took without knowing exactly where it would lead, we found something real. Not perfect, but true, and that made all the difference. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever stood on the edge of something uncertain, know that you're not alone. And sometimes, the scariest jumps lead to the most beautiful landings. Thank you for watching. If this journey meant something to you, share it. Subscribe for more faceless stories that speak to the heart. And never forget, sometimes, letting go is the first step to being found.